Good evening. This is my final project for AED 807. The topic I chose to do my project on is social and emotional learning. This is a district-wide initiative that we are doing with all the schools to implement social and emotional learning at various levels. And this presentation will talk about what SEL is as a whole, how we're trying to integrate it into our existing Portrait of a Graduate, and specifically what we're doing at West Marion Elementary to implement social and emotional learning. West Marion Elementary is a school that I'm currently principal at. This is my second year as principal, and we're making plans and implementing those plans to incorporate social emotional learning into our uh, daily curriculum and in our daily programs for our students. First thing that's important to know is what is SEL? SEL actually stands for social emotional learning, and this YouTube clip does a good job of explaining exactly what SEL is. So we'll take a moment to watch it. So as you can see, that gave a good kind of overview of what SEL is and trying to capture that to allow the students learn under the best conditions to tap into those kids to make them more resilient, to make them more aware of their surroundings and try to put them in the best environment to where they can learn to the best of their ability. Specifically in Marion County, we have a document that we just released. We've done Portrait of a Graduate for several years now, but this is a new document to kind of streamline the process. And this is at all our schools, and this is something that we've also unveiled this year to try to communicate better in a more streamlined fashion of what we want our students to look like and be like when they graduate high school. And of course, that starts at the elementary level. So you can see, the different parts of the cog. Um, up top, and of the six main categories is effective communicators, constructive collaborators, problem solvers, content masters, creative thinkers, and committed individuals. And of course, our high school mascot is the knight. So you can see that each one of those categories starts with a knight is, or a knight first does this, or listens, or thinks, or is persistent. So there's lots of good descriptors. It's simple, it's easy to understand, it's something that we can communicate effectively with not only our students, our staff, but our community stakeholders. Now, the big piece of this is how do we integrate the SEL framework? That was one of the diagrams we saw in the YouTube video that consists of 5 parts: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making. How do we take that document, that SEL framework, and integrate it into our portrait of a graduate so that they are working together to accomplish the goal of getting our students to be able to be these 6 things that we want them to be when they graduate high school by using these skills that are present in the SEL framework. Of course, one of the cogs is self-awareness, and of course, that's the ability to recognize one's own emotion, thoughts, values, and how they influence behavior. The ability to accurately assess one's strengths and limitations with a sense of confidence, optimism, and a growth mindset. That is one of the parts of SEL. And then, of course, what you see here is how that fits in with the different parts of our portrait of a graduate. So you see that it it breaks it down to the different parts there, such as creative thinkers. That's one of the parts of our portrait of a graduate, and with self-awareness, trying new things in order to find own strengths and promote the growth mindset. So those are some a good teaching tool. This is available to all our staff, and they have come aware of this through a playlist that every staff member has had to complete over the summer to familiarize themselves with SEL and how it fits in with Portrait of a Graduate. So it's a way to basically introduce 2 documents and show immediately how they interconnect. And of course, the next one is self-management. And again, you can see what that says and how it integrates in the program of Portrait of a Graduate, social awareness. And I think this does a good job of connecting the 2 so that they're not 2 separate documents. They're 2 separate documents that are blended together to work together to hopefully accomplish the goal of our students meeting these expectations when they graduate. This kind of hits home because I have a junior in high school right now, and as I look through the portrait of a graduate, I ask myself, okay, is my son an effective communicator? Is he a creative thinker? Is he a committed individual? Is he able to collaborate and work with a team? So it hits home not only for the students that I'm principal of, but also with my own children as well. I have a 3rd grader, an 8th grader, and a 11th grader. So I can kind of see, okay, are my kids, personal kids, meeting this criteria? And if not, how can I be a better parent to help that? And how can I be a better principal and to teach my teachers how to put these skills into practice in their classroom? And relationship skills it is one of the bigger ones, I think, because in the advent of social media and where kids are spending more time in front of a screen than face to face, I think this is a big one because a lot of times kids have a hard time communicating with one another, especially as technology gets more and more advanced and kids are communicating through a screen more than face to face. So I think this is one of those critical components and something that SEL can really have a big difference in on how to communicate and how to talk to one another and how to teach our kids to deal with peer pressure situations and to negotiate conflict and seek that help that they may need but may be afraid to ask for. And then responsible decision making is another one. So you can see it takes those 5 parts of the SEL wheel and then integrates it into the 6 parts that we have as part of our portrait of a graduate. So that's a document or some information that we're using to educate our staff. And one of the things that we have done is, and this makes it kind of nice because if I open this up right here, it does a good job because you're thinking, okay, I'm principal of a school that's preschool through 5th. So, I'm looking here to, okay, the first one is the anchor standard of self-awareness. Okay, well then what does that look like, in a preschool to second grade classroom? Well, this helps me take that and break the standard down into different parts, and then I'm able to target that with show kind of across the board here what that looks like in the different classrooms. Of course, it's going to be a little simplified for the elementary grade. So I don't necessarily have to worry about 6th through 8th grade. It targets what I want my teachers to be able to get across to their students, whether they're preschool through second grade teachers or 3rd through 5th grade. So this is a great document in order to educate those teachers and therefore educate our students. All right. So, how are we incorporating SEL at West Marion? I mentioned earlier that we had our teachers, all staff across the district, um, did a playlist. And in that playlist is basically a breakdown of what this PowerPoint is. They had to understand what SEL was. They had to look at those standards. They had to um, look at that portrait of a graduate and understand how it integrates with the SEL framework. And so to bring it specifically down, how it helps or how we're doing things at West Marion, every morning, especially in this virtual environment, we start out in virtual on August 17th. And one of the things we want our students to do every day, there is a link called a SEL checklist. And it looks like this. Our school counselor put it together, and it basically looked like this. Had some good emojis on it. Basically, how do you feel today? They would click that. For our older grades, 3 through 5, they would type in, okay, why do you feel that way? What's a goal you have for today? And would you like to talk to your counselor about that? And basically, every one of our students did this as part of their playlist. And this data was collected by our counselor, and she was able to take that data and draw some conclusions. Because if there was some kids that were over the course of a day or a course of a week, they were always tired or sleepy, or they were sad, or they were upset or angry or nervous and scared, if that occurred more than once or several times in a week, that counselor knows, well, I may need to go pull and talk to that kid and counsel with that kid individually. Why are you nervous and scared? Why are you tired and sleepy all the time? Why do you feel that way? And if they put some information down here to where, they may feel that way because they're not getting enough sleep at night, or they had a bad day at home, or things like that. So we're able to take this data in a this is a non-threatening way to get data, and it's very valuable to our counselor and myself if we need to identify those kids and pull those kids and meet with them one-on-one for additional help. So that's one way we're addressing SEL every day. And even now that we're in person, we are starting September 8th, we went fully in person. So we have about 15% of our kids still doing distance learning, but those kids that are in person or distance learning, the first thing they do every day is they click on this link and they fill out the SEL checklist. So that's something we're doing daily to monitor social emotional learning. Also, what we're doing is, as far as daily instruction, we're having our teachers, whether it be daily or 2 or 3 times a week, somehow making SEL part of their curriculum, whether it be through writing. They may write about, their feelings or how they feel about in-person versus distance learning. They may do some journaling. Okay, what's a scary moment that you had, or how did you cope with that? Or in the reading curriculum, where they're reading books. It's our first grade teachers. They're reading books about diversity and inclusion and people that may be different from them, and how to deal with that. So that's something that our teachers are doing in a variety of ways, basically through reading, writing, or journaling. So that's something we'll be able to incorporate daily. Something they were doing anyway. We're just being more intentional about it. Okay. The next thing that we're doing is our counselor. We've identified a curriculum that's going to be used in our district for preschool through 5th grade called Sanford Harmony. and that's a free curriculum that is, click on this link here. That's a free curriculum um, from an organization that is, oh, let's see here. You can kind of see here it's access to full free curriculum. It's 100% no cost. It's in over 22,000 schools. Um, it's a very um, popular, very effective curriculum used in other schools. So that is what our district has decide to use, and we think it's going to be good. We haven't really unveiled that yet, but one of the things our counselor is going to do after fall break is actually go into our classrooms. We're going to. She has scheduled times to where we have 17 homerooms. She's in each of those homerooms at least once every 2 weeks. And this uh, Sanford Harmony curriculum is our primary curriculum. And you can see through the pacing guide here some of the ideas. It basically structures it, you know, things like who are we, things we have in common, to change like a caterpillar. You can see it basically breaks down week by week what you can do all year long. And so that's very helpful to have that curriculum that's so well organized, but it's also free to use. So that just shows you that there's organizations out there that think so much of SEL that they're willing to offer a free curriculum to students. And we're very, very fortunate that we were able to partner with Sanford Harmony. And you can see it's one main lesson every 2 weeks. So basically, each homeroom teacher is going to get a lesson every 2 weeks from our school counselor. And that's also another way for her to connect with those students in the classroom and see her in a different environment besides her office. She's in classroom teaching and building those relationships with those students. So we think that's also very, very important. So those are some things that we're doing to incorporate SEL in our district, and more importantly, SEL at West Marion. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we are actually having focus groups. Each teacher, each staff member have 10 to 15 kids that they meet with once a week, just to talk about what's been going on that week, some things that may be on their mind, just in a safe, positive environment. That's something we want to incorporate more so next year, but we're looking to incorporate these three things: the SEL checklist, which we've already done, the Sanford Harmony curriculum, which we're going to incorporate beginning October 12th, which is right after our fall break, and also continue in our PLCs to talk about how we're incorporating SEL in our classroom so that as teachers, they can learn from each other and maybe share ideas on how best to do that in their classroom. So we think this is going to reap great benefits for our students because they'll be more in tune with their personal lives, their feelings. They'll be more likely to share those if they're having issues at home or at school. That will build resiliency. That will build some determination, some of those soft skills that employers are looking for. Time management, hard work, resiliency, problem solving, good communication, understanding people from different backgrounds and different beliefs. We're hoping by incorporating these principles in our students at an early age that will build as they go through their educational career. And when we talk about those six pillars, those six ideas, as far as portion of a graduate, they're more likely to take place. In addition to all that, our district's also partnered with Terrace Metrics, and every student in grades 3 through 5 is taking this survey. And this survey is basically designed to measure risk factors such as any kind of depression or anxiety, victimization, social ostracism, and also measures resiliency factors such as grit, leadership, and hope. And I know that may seem like some deep, tough topics at such an early age, but we as a district feel like that if we can get this identified at an early age, we can intervene quicker and therefore may be able to help these students at an earlier age. So every one of our students have just completed, in grades 3 through 5, have completed this terrace metric survey, and it basically offers you a report, and based on that report, if they're a risk factor 1, 2, or 3, we have conferences with them within 24 hours just to kind of intervene and have that conversation. If they're risk factor 4 or 5, it's not as serious that we meet with them, but we still meet with them within a week or two just to check in with them. You know, is everything going okay? Did you have any questions about the questions? Was there anything confusing about that? Why did you answer this question a certain way? Just to have that communication where kids can feel comfortable in sharing their feelings and sharing their emotions, and helping with those, like I said, soft skills that sometimes tend to get overlooked. So overall, Marion County Public Schools, we want to educate the whole child, not only academically, but also socially and emotionally. And we're not only putting lip service to that, we're actually putting that in action with several tools and initiatives that we have this year. So, if anybody has any questions of what we're doing, uh, glad to share, glad to answer any questions and help you in any way we can. I'm excited about this initiative. I think it's good for our students. I think it's good for our staff, and I think it's good for our districts. Thank you for taking time to listen, and have a good evening.